The following program is presented by the HTM Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of Turnbuckle Talk, presented by the Hitting the Marks Podcast Network and in association with NDPW.com. Turnbuckle Talk is sponsored by CollarandelbowBrand.com, where you get 10% off when using promo code JKPodcast. Turnbuckle Talk is also partnered with Phoenix at FNXFit.com, where you get 15% off all your health supplements simply by using promo code TBTalkPod. Follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching at TB Talk Pod. Listen on Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you catch your favorite programs. And now, pro wrestling fanatics, are you ready? Here are your hosts, Mighty Joe Morin and Karl Karufel.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Karl Karufel, alongside Mighty Joe and our returning new friend. Man, people, if you have not listened to anything that this guy does, I absolutely love this guy, and you definitely need to go and listen to whatever he is doing. Our friend, JPJ, and this is Turnbuckle Talk.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back for another episode of Turnbuckle Talk. And usually you and I will kind of shoot the breeze about what's kind of going on in the past week. But I wanted to just start off, because I will pass things over to you, Karl, and Joe to plug the Trevor Project. But I want to kind of start out by just kind of putting over JPJ here as much as possible, because, I mean, you're fairly new to the game, brother. But, I mean, like I specifically requested to produce one of your main shows, Between Two Beers, because, I saw your first episode. I'm like, these guys you and John are just doing an incredible job. But, like, I need to be a part of this, even if it's behind the scenes, recording and pushing the buttons and turning the knobs, so to speak. Man, you guys are killing it with Between Two Beards and, of course, the War Report and all that great stuff, man. It's great to have you back here on Turnbuckle Talk.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Too kind, the words you're saying, but I appreciate them very much. I mean, I think the thing that works for me is, like, I'm just having a blast, man. Like, it's just... I'm a 36-year-old dude that's been watching wrestling my whole life, and I never dreamed of being able to just chat about wrestling with other people that love wrestling. No pun intended, but kind of pun intended. Yeah. So I don't know if it just comes off that way, but, like, I've heard, things like you gentlemen just said about me that I appreciate and still kind of blow my mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm just a regular guy, just kind of talking, in my own brain, I'm like, I don't, whatever. But, I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun. Between Two Beards, the War Report, just everything we do, like on Love Wrestling, all the reacts, being on here. You guys invited me back for a second week in a row. Like, it's all a blast and it's all fun to me. And I think that kind of is why it comes off across that I'm having so much fun doing it, is because I literally am. Like, it doesn't feel like work or anything. It's just like, yeah, I'm just having fun talking to good people about wrestling.
Absolutely. All right, boys.
Now, for all of you that don't know as of yet, we have shifted things a little bit here with Turnbuckle Talk, and we have become part of the Love Wrestling family with this broadcast. They have been doing some amazing stuff over at Love Wrestling, and one of the greatest things that they have done this month, during Pride Month, is offering support. Take a look down at the ticker below, everybody, and you will see that we have been raising funds for the Trevor Project, an amazing company that has been going through and doing what they can for those within the Pride community. And not only just for those in the Pride community, but really anybody that is having any type of thoughts or needs any type of help, they're there for you. Go check out the TrevorProject.com is where you go for that. But for us here, we had a goal of $1,000 to raise for the Trevor Project, and by God, we hit that before the middle of the month. We
hit it, yeah.
Oh, it was unbelievable. So we have raised that up to $2,000. And I know with the help and support of everybody that we can hit that. So how do you help out and support? It's easy. Take a look at the ticker below. Donate.tiltify.com/@lovewrestlingca/Trevor Project. Yep. You're going to be helping out so many people that need it, that might not be able to talk to their friends and their family about situations that are going on in their life. They can go and talk with these people, and they have helped so many people, and we want to be able to help them continue to help other people as well.
And guys, even if you can't financially donate or support, share the link, share a post. Then you can at least spread the word, and then somebody there might be able to do it. So don't feel guilty for not donating, but still help spread the word. Because it is an important thing that we're doing here, and as Joe just mentioned, like, it's kind of mind blowing to me that less than 2 weeks into promoting this, I mean, we've already destroyed that goal of $1,000. I've been part of other things where we've done charities that have fallen completely flat, and then to see this and the response and everything for it has just been absolutely incredible.
It really has. And, I felt good about it after, when we first did this, we had our first couple streams on June 1st, and we were already like a couple $300 in after day one. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it relatively soon. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see. And it shows that, we got good people in our community, in our Love Wrestling community, that want to help other people, which is what we're trying to do here. So, I mean, it's really been a good effort by everybody, all of us, and specifically the people that have donated and shared and made awareness. And like you said, don't feel guilty if you cannot donate yourself. Raising awareness on things is almost as important as raising money. And yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that. So, even if you can't donate, like Joe said, share the link, because there's probably plenty of people that can. And if you can't, sharing that link, which leads to more donations, is equally as important as you donating yourself. So anything we can do, let's just keep on doing it. Let's just keep crushing these goals, because we still got half the month left. So let's keep going, Yeah.
That's right. So for the majority of this episode today, we are going to leave that link down below. Unfortunately, you can't click on it, but as it's scrolling, write it down and then type that into your browser. We will leave that there for everyone.
Absolutely. All right, boys, let us get into some professional wrestling discussion here. And let's kick off with, I know this is slightly old news, because as typical, and Karl can vouch for me on this one, and JPJ, if you become regular here all the time, you'll start to notice this trend happen with us, is that our episodes happen, and then usually minutes or hours following our program, breaking news tends to happen, which is why we try and have a breaking news segment, but it always happens after the show. We're talking Lio Rush, of course, made his debut there at Double or Nothing, and it seems that some type of injury may or may not have happened, and then shortly after, he's basically saying that he wants to quit the wrestling business. I saw it, I was just kind of blindsided. I was just like, wow, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was my immediate reaction. I was like, you're going to wrap it up with that.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was, especially because I thought he had a good showing at Double or Nothing. He wasn't in the match terribly long, and I don't know if the injury had something to do with that, but he got a good pop. It was a surprise. Yeah. We were on, preview shows, and none of us picked Lio Rush to be the Joker. He was out of the blue. Yeah. It was a nice surprise, and he did well. And then all of a sudden you hear that he banged up his shoulder, and it's not a great injury. And then all of a sudden, you hear the next day that he's retiring. He's 26.
Yeah.
26 years old. That's super duper young.
Very young.
And, obviously he knows himself best if that's a decision he wants to make, whether it's family related, like he said, or maybe he's just got a bad injury and it's not the first one. And he's 26 and he's like, I don't want to end up having these litany of injuries as I get older. I don't know. But 26 is a little young. I wouldn't be shocked if somewhere down the line and we see him again, because he is so young and has so much more left to give. But I think this kind of took everybody by surprise, big time.
What about you, Karl? What was your reaction to this news dropping?
I definitely, I was shocked by it, considering like we had seen him in MLW. Everything was great. He was doing fantastic stuff over in MLW. Personally, am I a fan of him, like as a person? Maybe not. You know what? I usually found him to be a little bit cocky, maybe, about himself, when really I don't think that it was warranted. But professionally, inside that ring, he could go.
Yep.
He was definitely a great worker inside that ring. So to have this news come out, total shock, especially having that Joker card and coming out and like that was a pop. There was a pop when that happened. There was a surprise that 9 times out of 10 in the wrestling business, we already know because of the internet. Mm-hmm. So we already know, oh, this person's backstage. So yeah, especially with WWE, when they're doing the Royal Rumble, yeah, we kind of already know who's going to be there and who's not. But this was a genuine surprise that I was happy about. But then sustaining injury, and then, the decision to kind of call it quits, which shocking. It definitely was a shock.
Because this possibly could tie right directly into our next topic here with this. Because I mean, you had mentioned it there, Karl, with that kind of the cocky attitude of, I already know that I'm better than you. And like just like outside of character, because we know like MGF and some of these guys do that type of shtick there. But I mean, this is typically a mindset that, in the old school professional wrestling days would not have suited you well. That kind of attitude, those guys in that locker room would eat you alive. If you had that kind of attitude, because there's a hierarchy in professional wrestling, and even some smaller companies. I actually went back to make a localized reference to Canada here just recently on iTunes. It happened to be discounted. The little mini documentary on CWE. Went and watched that. And when they're touring the country, we had the younger guy, Tyler Colton, who is who's an up and coming talent, but Danny and AJ Sanchez, they're the experienced guys. So you know what? Colton's got to ride in the back. I mean, there's a hierarchy to how things kind of work, and you need to know your place. So this attitude of being very young but already feeling like you know it all typically does not suit you well in the wrestling business, right? Because I've said it before, just life in general, and on this podcast and other platforms I've been on, regardless of what you do, what your profession is, what your hobby is, whether it be professional wrestling, whether it be talking about wrestling, whether it be being a construction worker, whether it be a barista, whether it be being a security guard, there is always going to be somebody that has more experience and knows more than you do. You're never going to get to the point to where you know it all. It doesn't exist. So you need to have the attitude. The better attitude is to be essentially a dry sponge, to absorb all the information that's come before you, and to be somebody that's willing to receive criticism, constructive criticism, and be able to learn and to change. Not to go in with the attitude of, well, I already know all there is to know, and I'm better than you are already. It's an attitude, it's a mindset that just typically doesn't work out well.
Yeah, and then when he was in WWE, some of the issues, at least backstage, was like he refused to carry people's bags and stuff like that, which you can look at that either way you want to look at it. Like, I understand those old rules. When it comes to feedback and things like that, like I think that's where you were really referencing, Joe. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm the manager of where I work, not doing this wrestling stuff, and I learn things every day. Like, that's part of the gig. You grow, you learn. I even if it's someone who's below me, like one of my baristas, it doesn't matter. Like, I learn things from them too every day, whether it's work related, life related. I'm not a 20-year-old kid anymore. So the more info I get on that culture and those type of people help me be able to manage people that are 20 years old, so like, you should always be learning and you should always be growing. So having that mentality 100%, and I agree with you 100%. When it comes to some of the things you've heard with him, like refusing to like kind of do the ritual, like, oh, you're the new guy, so you got to clean up after me and you got to carry my bag. Some of that hit or miss for me. Like, that's old school to a point where I think some of that should probably change. But as far as like what you mentioned, Joe, that's not an attitude that's going to suit you forever. Like at some point you're going to have that moment where you eventually learn, and it's either going to be the hard way or the easy way. Right. And those kind of things were not very good to hear when you read some of that stuff when it came to Lio Rush, you know?
And again, to make reference to that CW documentary, again, I want to plug that as well. If you get a chance to check out, it's absolutely fantastic. Talking about touring professional wrestling in Canada during the wintertime. During that particular tour, they had Jake the Snake Roberts on the tour. I mean, he is about as high up as you can get when it comes to professional wrestlers and all the experience. And even Jake, was still helping put out chairs, putting together and taking apart the ring. Karl and I even had the experience of setting up, actually taking down chairs with Jake the Snake Roberts. Dude is like as experienced as you can get, and he even still will do that. So these younger guys, if you think that you're above doing this kind of stuff, you are incorrect. It's just not how it works, and having that attitude just will not suit you well. I know with Lio, I guess supposedly there was a beef with Mark Henry, and I guess that was kind of that got fixed before he kind of came over. But I want to kind of weave this into our next topic here, because part of me has a feeling that maybe this is also at the root of the issue here, of professional wrestlers suffering from essentially what I call a fear of success. And this isn't unique to the wrestling business. This is something that happens everywhere with certain things, where it's like you get to a certain, or you're about to get to a certain level, then it scares you or it freaks you out. I'm wondering if maybe that could be part of the issue here, because he did get a really good pop there, and it was like maybe it like startled him. Because I've mentioned it too before, you know, it happened with the same company, Kylie Ray. I think another a really good example of this kind of happening, you know, because up to this point, you know, she had really kind of been doing a lot of independent work, and then got over really, really well with AEW, and then it's almost like it scared her, and she distanced herself away from the wrestling business. This is something that I think is a real phenomenon here that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, a fear of success in the wrestling business, because I think that it's worth talking about. I'll start with you, Karl.
I mean, it definitely is there. And like you said, it's not just within the professional wrestling business. I mean, it is in every professional sport that you can think of. It is in radio. It is in broadcast. It is in movies. Yep. Like actors as well. Like they get this. What's difficult is learning how to overcome that fear that you're having to go on to succeed, right? I think I heard a story years ago that one of my favorite actors, Nicolas Cage, one of my all-time favorite. I love watching anything that guy does. But he had fears at the very beginning. He had fears that he wasn't good enough, that he couldn't do this, that, you know, he was just going to become a hack, that it wasn't going to happen. And then his mindset changes to where he's going, I just got to do this, and I can definitely be me. And if the people love me or the people hate me, it doesn't matter, because there are so many people that love him and so many people that hate him, and he has embraced that. And I mean, you hear nothing about Nicolas Cage now on big programs or big movies, but you know, he is probably one of the hardest workers in Hollywood. He does anywhere from 8 to 15 smaller independent films throughout the year, which is unheard of. No one else does. Not even The Rock does that. One of the biggest people in Hollywood right now. But Nicolas Cage does. Right? So because he got over that. He learned how to get over that. So I mean, that's what you got to do, and it's very hard to do. It's a mindset thing, and it's a mindset change, and it's something that needs to click within you. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing that you can do about that. When it does, though, you're unstoppable. Yeah. And maybe this step away from the business because of an injury or something like that might give Lio Rush that little bit of a click inside of him that goes, no, I definitely can. And I'm not afraid, right? So, and that goes for anyone that is having any of those doubts.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there is a strong mental side, and it is all mental. I think, like, mental health is real. And I think when things start to go really well, you start, you're not really thinking in the moment all the time. You're thinking about, ooh, all right, things are going well. Like, what does this mean this month from now, or maybe a year from now, whatever. And when you're on the brink of success, especially at something on this type of platform that is professional wrestling, AEW, WWE, like that's national television weekly. Like that's big time stuff, right? So like that's going to creep into you, and it's going to be like, oh man, like, wow, this seems like it's going well. Like, and you start thinking about how many people are going to be watching me. Like, how big is my platform? And I could see you, because it would probably happen to me. I would have to get over it. Like, I figure out a way to get through it, push through it, really, like Karl said. But that will happen. I also think, and again, I don't want to come off as the guy in his 30s talking about younger people, but I work with a lot of younger people. And I do think the mentality of the younger generation is different. Like, I don't know if this goes into the wrestling business, but like, I don't even think it's really a fear of success all the time. I think is they want to be successful in their own way. And I feel like when we all started watching wrestling, whether it was 80s, 90s, whatever, like that way was getting to WWE. You got to WWE, they were the biggest, they still are, duh. But like, they were really, for a long time, the biggest or the only wrestling company in town, right? So that's where you went to become a superstar. And now it's really not. Yes, you can still go there and probably make the most money, but it's really not. You can go to Impact and work 4 or 5 times a month and then go stream and make money your own way and be successful your own way, as opposed to now that the world is kind of working its way back, being on the road 300 times a year again once they start touring, and being away from your family and your kids and your all these things. So I think it's kind of like a potpourri of all this stuff, really. Like, I think it's definitely, there's a mental side to it where it jars people, like, oh man, like my life is going to be different now. And that can be jarring, right? But I also think they're starting to see there's other ways to do it as well. And like, you see it in other sports, like Karl mentioned other sports. Look at the NBA. I love the NBA, but look at the NBA. 5, 6, 7 years ago, you couldn't pick what team you wanted to go play for. You couldn't call up your friends and be like, hey, we should play together. Let's go there. And we're just going to tell our owners that they're going to trade us or let us go there. And that's where we're going to play. We saw Tom Brady do it in football last year. And I'm a Patriots guy. That hurt me, but we saw it. Like, I just think it's a cultural shift. And I think the pandemic made people kind of think like of the workforce in general, like regular people, not athletes, not big time celebrities. It made us think, like, you're starting to see throughout everything, like workers want to take a little bit of their power back, and we're kind of getting there. And I think that's part of this too. I do.
You had mentioned something really great there, Joe, that WWE hasn't become that end all, the ultimate goal anymore. I mean, to some it is to a certain extent, but there are some that have realized, hey, you know what? I can go to Ring of Honor, I can go to Impact, I can go to New Japan, and I can do just as well for myself without having to go to the WWE. There's definitely been a major shift in that direction. Whether you want to, like you said, wrestle essentially part-time and do something on the side, that avenue is available as well. And it's been very interesting to see the move away from that in the wrestling business. It's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know if we have put this up on screen yet, but here, our good friend Ryan. Thank you so much for coming by again. Ryan, Don Lewis, Christopher, thank you all. I've noticed as well that our good friend Spencer from Love Wrestling has also tuned in and given us some hearts on this. Thank you very much for that. But Ryan, yes, he's a Coppola, yeah. The industry's in his blood, 100%. And then this one here, oh, of course I did.
Yeah.
I absolutely love anything and everything that he does. It doesn't matter if he's got an accent, like nothing at all. Nothing at all will cloud my judgment on how much I love Nicolas Cage.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hey,
Spencer,
here right
thank
now.
you, my friend.
Here right now.
Thank you so much.
All right, so for our next topic here, this one I almost wish that we had our friend Mr. Josh Robinson on for this one. Yeah. But he, knowing time zone differences, that dude's probably sleeping right now. But eventually we'll have to have Josh on this program. I think especially this month, that's a goal of mine. This current state of women's professional wrestling. This is actually one of two topics this week that stems from something that Triple H said. Right, recently, I forget if it was some type of interview or appearance or whatever, of him essentially saying, when it comes to women's professional wrestling, you have to, the best are in WWE. This is where you have to be with women's wrestling. I feel that is not an accurate statement whatsoever. And I'm not going to be the type to just point in one direction. I think that there's great women's professional wrestling across the globe and across promotions. And I think most notably for myself of the ones that I watch, because full transparency, there's a lot of professional wrestling that I don't watch because there just frankly isn't enough time in the day to watch it all. It's impossible. But most notably for myself would be in the NWA and over Stardom in Japan. I mean, some of the best women professional wrestlers are in those promotions. We see Mickie James now over in the NWA. They're going to be doing this specific show to women in the NWA, which I think is going to be fantastic. And then over at Stardom, you have this extremely talented young crop of women talent over there. And I stress the word young because, over there, they start training when they're less than 10 years old. They're in there taking bumps, they're running the ropes. So, they can have a successful core group of women there for a long time. There is great, if you're somebody who's a fan of women's professional wrestling, you don't need to just look at the WWE. Look at all these other promotions, and you're likely going to find some fantastic women's professional wrestling. That is just a fact. I'm going to pass it over to you, Joe.
Yeah, and I agree with what we put up a couple of Spencer's comments. From a promotional standpoint, I have no issue, like Spencer says here, with what Triple H said. He works for WWE. He should think WWE is the best. 100%.
I get it, yeah.
And so, I get that, but the way it was phrased, he said, if you're not here, you're not the best. The best are here. So, and if you're not here, you want to be here. Yeah. And that's simply not true. Because we know there are plenty of people, we're talking about women specifically in this segment, but there are plenty of people in all formats, male, female, whatever, that they don't have, going to WWE isn't the goal, And it was just a bizarre comment. And it was a bizarre comment in the way that the question wasn't asked, hey, Hunter, what is your opinion on the state of women's professional wrestling? He was asked specifically about Mickie James, who they just fired, her running an all-women's event for a different promotion. And then him, who is part of the company who ran an all-woman event a few years ago, that was a very good event that was highly praised, as it should have been, played it off like, oh, well, equality isn't just having your own show. No. It does. That's not what this is about. And then he kind of played it off like he downplayed the significance of an all-woman pay-per-view when 2 years ago, your company yourself was playing up that an all-woman pay-per-view was the greatest thing ever, which it was. We were all excited for it. But you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. You can't be excited for it and then because somebody else is doing it, oh, well, that's not what – no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. That's what rubbed me the wrong way about it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys were touting up your all-woman Evolution pay-per-view for months and weeks, as you should be promoting. But, it was this big, important, cool thing for you guys a couple years ago, and now it's a big, important, cool thing for the NWA, but because you can't – what? You can't give any – it was just that part rubbed me the wrong way most about it.
Definitely. For me as well, it definitely did. Now, I do have to say here that I do agree with Don's statement here. Okay, AEW is rocking ladies wrestling right now. 100% they are. Women's wrestling in AEW has been fantastic, and I'm loving everything that's there. And then our friend Ryan. Okay, so yeah, Thunder Rosa runs Mission Pro Wrestling in Texas. All women. Great collection of indie talent. Texas is a hotbed for wrestling right now for talent. And yeah, Texas has always been one of those hotbeds, 100%, but it just seems to have exploded over the last year and a half or so, which during a pandemic is mind-blowing that it's just been a hotbed, but absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I mean, wow.
And
Like, I think Don might actually have hit it on the head here when he says, but was that Triple H or was that Vince being the puppet master again? You see, it's
yeah,
I don't
and
know.
yeah, to touch on that, I feel like the more and more we hear Triple H, he sounds more and more like Vince. And I remember, and I think I mentioned this on one of the Love Wrestling shows last week or whatever, but like I remember the thought process when we used to complain about WWE and the main roster and stuff was like, oh, well, you know, at one point it was, well, NXT is great. Like when Triple H is going to take over at some point, and when he takes over, like everything's going to be, it's going to be great. It's going to be good again. And now you start hearing like this was bad, but there's been other questionable things that he said too within the last year and a half that you start to hear that stuff and you're like, is it? Is it going to be better or is it going to be literally the same just with Triple H instead of Vince, you know? And as far as women wrestling goes, like, yeah, there's talented women wrestlers everywhere and you can find good women's wrestling matches everywhere, but there's still, you know, on AEW, as much as I love AEW, I do a show weekly about AEW. Like they still get pigeonholed in that 9:30 5-minute squash match. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they do have 2 matches a week and it's cool and you get a long form one and then, but it always seems like whenever there's a short match or there's going to be a planned shorter match on these main programs, it's a women's match. Or that just seems to be the trend late. And it's like, okay, like we know we have all these talented women on all these rosters, even WWE. They have Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, Becky, who should be coming back soon. You look at NXT, there's talent everywhere. But a lot of the time you see the talent, it's quick little matches where they're not really being given all the time they need to really show what women's wrestling. Because for me, I enjoy women's wrestling a lot more than I enjoy the men's most of the time. Like I could have made an argument 2-3 years ago that the women were carrying WWE. Yes. And now it's just not that way anymore. Bayley didn't even have a match at WrestleMania, for crying out loud. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen?
Yeah. Spencer, you're making mention that over in Ring of Honor that they're going to have a really robust women's division. I think, especially coming out of the pandemic, you'll see that rise back up as well. So I think needless to say that we feel that there's great women's wrestling across the world. And to our listeners out there, don't just limit yourself to WWE, especially even if you're just specifically a women's wrestling fan. There's so much great stuff out there to watch, so make sure and check it all out.
YouTube. That's all you got to do. Go to YouTube and search women's wrestling. You'll find wrestling from all over the world that is available for women's wrestling, and a lot of it is damn fantastic.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. I figure since we have 3 of us on here, I think this would be a good topic to shoot back and forth here. Dark Side of the Ring Season 3. We haven't really talked about some of the episodes that have happened here on Turnbuckle Talk, so I thought we'd kind of touch on some of our favorite ones here. And since we have Jay here, we'll throw this over to you first. Just general thoughts of the season, and maybe give us a pick for one that's really stood out to you so far with this season.
I think the season has been good. I think, it's just a really well-made show. You know what I mean? Like, I have never really seen an episode. I mean, I've had episodes that were like, okay, that was good, but the other ones stand out. But like, I've never seen an episode where I was like, that stunk. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been a solid show. The only 2 that I haven't seen from this season are the Warrior and the Grizzly Smith one.
Yep.
But from the ones I have seen, obviously the Pillman one was excellent. I really liked the Dynamite Kid one, the latest one. I thought that was really good. So Dynamite Kid for me,
Spencer nailed it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I started watching wrestling, like early 90s, Dynamite Kid was really already on his way out of WWE. Like I remember the British Bulldogs tag team, but that was he was already gone when I started watching wrestling. So I knew who he was. And I went back and saw, the old matches that I would rent from the video stores when those things existed and things like that and stuff like that. But like seeing a little bit more about it and like seeing the style of wrestler he was, like we watched NXT TakeOver last night. Like a lot of that wrestling that happened throughout that event would not have happened if Dynamite Kid never wrestled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they made a good job in the episode talking about like the guys from the 90s that took Owen Hart, all these guys that wrestled that way that he inspired, which is really like a lot of the main wrestling, the type of wrestling that people enjoy now, AEW, NXT, these hard hitting flips, high spot, like things like that. Even when those high spots in the 80s and 90s weren't what they are today, he was that type of wrestler, fast paced, reversals, submissions. Like he was one of the guys that not started it, but like he was one of those early guys that now that's how a lot of people wrestle, you know? So it's crazy to see his influences 30 years or 40 years later almost now, you know? And then all obviously the crazy stuff with the wife. And I mean, that stuff was heavy, but just that one was very intriguing to me to watch because I didn't know, I knew who he was and I know obviously his legacy, but I didn't know a ton about him.
Yeah. For myself, for this third season of Dark Side, it's kind of a dead heat between two episodes that I've gotten the most out of, I find. The one on Aurelian Smith, of course, we heard a lot from Aurelian Smith Jr., which is better known to the wrestling community as Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, I knew that there was a very, very dark side to Jake's childhood that hadn't really, been fully kind of public, and to kind of hear a lot of what kind of transpired, and for lack of a better term, incest happening in the family, disturbing. But I think that it was something that was really, I think, healthy for Jake and his siblings to finally kind of get out there, and they even hinted on the episodes that they're making an effort to actually reconcile and actually to get back together as a family, which is always a good thing. And then the other one for me is the collision in Korea. That one is
wild,
something that I wasn't even really aware that happened, and to just see that like everything just surrounding the crowd there, but knowing that they were all forced to go. And just like the attitude in North Korea, I mean, they were essentially like prisoners during their time there. Like even Bischoff talking about, leaving the hotel briefly just to run down the street, and basically he felt like Godzilla running amok in Japan. Or in this case in Korea, like it just like people just didn't see stuff like that. You don't see people out jogging in the streets. It's you get shot for that, right? It was a real eye opener, and getting to hear a little bit too from Antonio Inoki was really, really, really cool, and to see stuff about Muhammad Ali as well, and just it was for me that was a really kind of crazy episode, and just one that I learned a lot from. Right, then those are my favorite ones. Of course, the Pillman episode and as well was always really, really good. That two-parter was quite something. With Dynamite too, I mean, you had nailed it too, Joe. That I mean, if it wasn't for Dynamite, I mean, that style would have rubbed off on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But just to find out, I wasn't aware that there was such a quote unquote dark side to Dynamite, and so again, that was an episode real where dark. I learned a lot. So and that's one thing that's been really good with this series, not just this season but this entire series for me, is that I thought I knew a lot about the wrestling business, but as we had kind of hinted at earlier, there's always room to learn more, and that's my biggest takeaway from this series, is that I have learned a lot. So I'm extremely thankful to the people at Vice TV for putting this series on. I've been digging it.
I definitely have been too. I was able to catch the last 3 episodes today, which was absolutely fantastic to be able to do and to see. So, I mean, it's already been touched on, but the Pillman episode was absolutely fantastic. And the Grizzly Smith one, I learned today. I did not know that Rockin' Robin, former WWF Women's Champion,
Jake's sister,
is Jake the Snake Roberts' sister.
Oh, I haven't seen that episode, so that's news to me right this moment.
Okay,
I did not know that.
Me either. I knew Grizzly Smith was his dad, but I didn't know that anybody else. And I won't spoil the rest for you. But I didn't know that other members of the family were in the professional wrestling business. So I was blown away to learn that today. And what I really love about the Dark Side of the Ring series is that they don't just go and crap on the person. They really have a good eclectic mix of people who maybe are not so fond of this character or this person, but then they have those that are very much so friends and fans. And they kind of meld the two of them nicely together
yeah.
and always end off the episode on a very good note, as opposed to leaving things with a very bad taste in people's mouths. So every episode that I have seen really has ended that way, with an uplift at the end of it instead of a downer, which is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, even to see like Lance Storm coming out and helping and doing some episodes as well, like that's holy crap. Like Lance, I haven't seen Lance Storm in years.
Jacques Rougeau. Seeing Jacques Rougeau again was really cool.
Yeah, Jacques Rougeau, Waylon Mercy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, holy jumping. Like I was excited to see these people again, because these are people that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
And now to kind of hear stories and their recollection of what had happened. Very, very interesting. So if you guys have not seen Dark Side of the Ring, go and do whatever you can to find it. And I'm sure if you have cable television, most cable TV now has on demand. I'm sure you can probably find it on demand. If you're using online streaming services, Crave TV has it. Yep. So, I mean, subscribe to Crave if you don't have it, because it's just fantastic. And it has all the episodes. All 3 seasons are available there. It's definitely well worth the watch.
Oh, yeah,
what is our friend Spencer here saying? I had absolutely no context to anything when I tuned into Grizzly Smith, and what an incredible watch. Obviously for awful, awful reasons, for a lot. But like Karl said, oh, thanks. It was cool to hear it end with some optimism on the part of the children. Yeah, Joe had mentioned that as well. Mighty Joe mentioned that about the hopefully the family kind of coming back together and building a bond between them all, which all of them said, I would love to be able to do that. So hopefully, maybe we'll see Vice TV.
You never know.
Bring that to us. That would be fantastic.
Nice. Cool. And like I said in this most recent episode too, it was really cool. As a French Canadian myself, to see Jacques Rougeau again was really cool. And I had no idea that he had that kind of side to him as well. He was hearing him drop F shots and that kind of stuff was a little jarring for me. But I mean,
when they talked about the Rougeau incident, that's like kind of infamous. That like crazy, that was
crazy,
really crazy, especially with him telling it and being like with the quarters and all that. Yeah. And you could see he was like you said, he was screaming F-bombs into the camera. Like he was like, it
was something. Yeah. It was definitely something. Looking forward to the rest of that season for sure. All right, guys, let us get to our breaking news segment. All right, so for breaking news segment, I think we'll keep this one relatively short here this week because we do still want to get to our match of the week and our Showstopper segment. I guess the biggest piece of breaking news is the very strong possibility. It seems that not only will Samoa Joe be returning to the WWE, but he may be the new GM of NXT. Mm-hmm. That is interesting, to say the very least. I'll throw that over to you, JPJ. What do you think on this possible very soon shift over from just letting this man go to now we're already bringing him back in?
Yeah. Well, it makes you kind of wonder why they would let him go in the first place, right? Yeah. A guy of that caliber. Yeah. I feel, I'm happy he's, according to the reports, coming back. I love Samoa Joe. I think we all do. Yeah. But as happy as I am with the rumor going around that he might be the person that replaces Regal on NXT, like, yes, I want to see Joe on TV every week, but I want to see Joe wrestle. And so it's like, yes, I'm happy he's back. Yes, anywhere really. I love Joe. I want to see Joe. But at the same time, this makes me think that he's probably still not cleared or maybe not physically okay to handle wrestling full time again or whatever. And that makes me sad because I would like to see him get one more legitimate, at least run anywhere. But if they're going to keep him in WWE, like, how is that man not held a world title on the main roster? Like, how did that happen? Right. How did that happen?
Crazy.
Come on. Absolutely. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, I'm glad he's back. I'm glad it sounds like we're going to be seeing him very soon, but at the same time, it's kind of a bummer that it might and probably won't be in a wrestling manner, because I think that's really that's how we want to see Joe, right? Is in the ring just beating the crap out of people.
That's what he does best. What was your take on that? In this whole situation here, Karl, it's a little crazy to think that it's almost maybe not the greatest reference, but it's almost like kind of taking an ex-girlfriend back when she just dumped you.
Kind of. I mean, my mind is more leaning towards Triple H throwing his weight around with Vince, right? Because essentially, I mean, at the end of the day, everything goes through Vince. And it would have been Vince that made the call to let Samoa Joe go. Whereas Triple H was like, what do you think you're doing? Nope. He's coming back, and I'm going to have him on NXT. If you don't want him on Raw or SmackDown, I'm going to have him on NXT. How about that, Dad?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how it feels to me right now, is that Triple H just kind of stepped over top of Vince and was like, if you're going to throw him away, I'll take him, and I'll show you how good he is. And when you want him back, maybe I'll let you have him for Raw or SmackDown. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm feeling about this. Yeah. I'm super happy about it, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, 100%. And I just like JPJ says, I hope that we get to see him wrestle again, because I have always been a fan of Samoa Joe. Yeah. As anyone who has watched this show before, you know that I am a fan of the bigger guys and the way that they work, especially somebody like Samoa Joe. You're talking the Big Boss Man, Vader, like all of these guys who could do these high caliber moves inside that ring and be a big guy, because I was a big guy. It was just super fantastic, right? So I'm happy. I'm excited. And I hope that we do get to see him wrestle again.
For sure. All right, guys. Like I said, I think we'll keep it to that for the breaking news for this week. But before we do get to our break and our Showstopper segment, let's do Match of the Week. All right, so for our Match of the Week segment here, in typical Turnbuckle Talk fashion, we will pass it off to our guest, Mr. JPJ. What was your favorite match from this week that was professional wrestling?
All right, so I have two that are sticking out to me. It's hard, but I have the 6-man from AEW Dynamite, where it was Pac, Penta, and Eddie Kingston versus the Bucks and Cutler. And I have that ladder match from TakeOver last night. It was really, really, really good. Yeah. But I think because I am on the War Report, I will go with the 6-man tag from Dynamite. Yeah. I thought that was love. I mean, obviously, Cutler for his role in that match, Cutler was great. He was there to get his ass kicked in revenge for what he did the week prior. And even in the moments where they gave him a little bit of offense, he was more than fine. But when you talk about the other 5 specifically, and the Young Bucks, Pac, one of the best wrestlers on the planet, Penta, who has been in a good groove lately. I know he's hit or miss sometimes, but lately he's been in a groove where he's been hitting all his stuff and looking good. And Eddie Kingston, who doesn't love that guy? Absolutely. I thought the match was just awesome, fast-paced. Everyone got their crap in. Cutler was there for the pin and the punching bag segments and stuff like that. And I loved Pac even adding a little bit of humor, which we don't see from him when he was mocking the Young Bucks with the pose and things like that. It was good. It was good. And I love the dynamic of Kingston and Pac being teammates, but not Pac not trusting him, which is obvious, Pac being Pac. But and then towards the end when they did the dive together and Kingston was like, come on, let's do it. Come on together. And he's like, come on. And then he finally did it. And the whole dynamic and the build to everything, I thought that was my match of the week.
For myself, you had actually made a hint at it there, Joe. For me, my favorite match is from NXT TakeOver in Your House. This was a match that had a trifecta of success for me, right? It included the $1 Million Championship. It included the combination of Cameron Grimes and LA Knight and $1 Million Man. Those are elements of success for a successful match in my mind. So for that reason, not only alone, but it makes it my favorite. I've always been a big fan of the $1 Million Man, and just seeing that kind of rub off on these guys a little bit is absolutely fantastic in my personal opinion. So, and they executed a great match. I'm a big fan of the ladder match gimmick, and they pulled out some old school stuff and incorporated some new school elements. It's solid. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, just do yourself a favor and do so. What about you, Karl?
Definitely love the idea of having that championship in a briefcase up top. Made it just feel that much more prestigious, which was absolutely fantastic. My match of the week, we talked about women's wrestling earlier. I'm going to go back to the NXT pay-per-view, Raquel Gonzalez versus Ember Moon. Absolutely, for myself, a fantastic matchup to watch, considering Raquel only like 3 years in the business. Absolutely fantastic with everything that was done. I don't know what more I can say about it. I was pleasantly surprised and very happy. The only note that I really took down for that matchup was I was not happy with the way it ended. I would have preferred Ember Moon, but we all know that Raquel has got a very good push going right now, and she hasn't had that championship for too long. So I kind of expected that she was going to keep it so that they could build up a little bit more with her. But in time, we're going to see Ember Moon with that championship around her waist again, and I am going to cheer like crazy the day that happens. Absolutely.
All right, guys, we're going to take a brief break here and hear from our friends over at collarandelbowbrand.com. But we're going to play, since we are part of the Love Wrestling family now, I think that our other Collar and Elbow ad here is very suiting, and we can really find out from a lot of these talents who are associated with Collar and Elbow and just what wrestling means to them and how much they love it.
Wrestling.
What does wrestling mean to me?
It's something I always wanted. Always.
What wrestling means to me is an escape.
What does professional wrestling mean to me? It means life.
All my life, I've been hearing impaired. I've been struggling with my voice and my hearing. Wrestling means so much to me because when I'm in the ring, I'm not that girl who can't hear. I'm not that girl who speaks a little differently.
I guess what wrestling really means to me is freedom.
Growing up, I always wanted to be more like the other girls, a bit smaller, a bit more petite. I didn't feel like I fitted in until I found pro wrestling, and then suddenly there was somewhere that I did fit in.
What does pro wrestling mean to me? It means family.
Professional wrestling to me means strength. Not just physical strength, but emotional and mental strength. Having the strength to go out there and show the world who you are.
In the real world, I have to hide. I have to fake. I have to put on a mask. But in wrestling, I can be strong or I can be weak.
Wrestling to me means life. It's my life. It's everything I know. It's everything I do. I wake up and go to sleep and I breathe wrestling. I am wrestling.
Believe. That's what wrestling means to me.
Discipline, sacrifice, and devotion.
Wrestling was always my dream since I was little, and I come from a little country in Italy, a very small town, and nobody believed that I was able to leave Italy and come in America and train hard to be a professional wrestler. But that was I did.
So what wrestling means to me is passion.
And wrestling truly to me means empowerment and fun, because I don't have a better time than when I'm in that ring.
Professional wrestling has brought me so much joy. I just can't even put it into words sometimes.
Wrestling to me is the biggest constant in my life. Everything I do revolves around it. My diet, my training, in the gym, in the ring, whatever have you.
Wrestling means to me is that it's something that you can express yourself with without any judgment.
For me, I want women's wrestling to not be women's wrestling. I want it to be wrestling.
It's shown me strength and courage and power and to be completely untouchable.
Plain and simple, what professional wrestling means to me is everything. I wouldn't give up what I do on a nightly basis for anything else in this world.
Wrestling is freedom, and I am born free.
Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
All right, so there we go. A word from our friends over at collarandelbowbrand.com. And a bit of a longer commercial, I know, but you really get a sense for what that brand was built around. And, you know, we definitely share a lot of the sentiments here. I love wrestling. You really get a feel from all the names that you heard from there of just the passion, the dedication, the work that goes into loving wrestling, so to speak. And of course, if you use our promo code JK Podcast at the checkout, you will get a very sweet 10% off your entire order there. So make sure and check that out. Always great merchandise over there, and just built around a passion for pro wrestling, which seems to be just something that we all share here, and what even brings us together here on this program today.
And with that said, absolutely perfectly, let's make our way over to our Showstopper segment.
All right, so for this week, for our Showstopper segment, it's kind of the name of our episode this week. Do wrestling fans ruin it for themselves? This is quite a topic. Now that I really kind of think about it, there's a lot that we can kind of sink our teeth into here. I'll start off with myself here to kind of set the tone, I guess, is when it comes to fans, it's especially in the age of social media. I think that a lot of fans think that they know how to run the shows and how to kind of book matches and so to speak. A lot of people feel that they have a little bit of inside knowledge, so they figure that they know it all, which kind of brings that full circle to what we were talking about earlier, that there is nobody that knows it at all. You may think that you know a little bit, but maybe you don't know as much as you think. And at the same time, too, I understand, because without an audience, professional wrestling would have no reason to exist. So it's a constant kind of pull and tug here with this. It's tough, man, because I think that there are some people that do ruin wrestling for themselves. In a large extent, sometimes I feel, even that for myself, with some matches, I feel like maybe I overanalyze too much and I'm potentially missing out on some matches. But at the same time, too, I mentioned this on our stream last night here, that especially with the main event from NXT TakeOver, I had no notes from that match because I was just fully invested watching what was kind of happening. So it's one of those ones where I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to fan opinions, because I know that there's a place for it, but sometimes those opinions and those takes are unwarranted as well. So it's a pull, and it's a push and pull for me. I'm gonna throw this over to your way, Joe. Here, what do you think on fans? Do a lot of fans kind of ruin it for themselves, or are they justified a lot of times in what they say?
All right, so it's tough. My
man.
thing is, right, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but everyone needs to also understand that, like, your opinion is not the only one that matters. And for a lot of us little guys, I'm one guy in Massachusetts, right? So I am one guy in Massachusetts. I care about my opinion, but in the scheme of things, my opinion doesn't matter that much. So it's one of those things where, like, I agree with you, Joe. I do think there are certain things that I watch wrestling and I do overanalyze. I wish this thing happened and it didn't, and that will make me sour on the whole thing. I don't usually take it publicly like some wrestling fans do, and that's a little bit of overkill. And then if you disagree with them, it's the end of earth, like that part of it. But that's with kind of any medium, sadly, wrestling, sport, whatever it is. That's just the way things seem to be now. But I do think fans ruin it for themselves. I think they think they're the booker. I think they are expecting every wrestling company to cater to them and just them. Yeah. And it's like, well, this is what I like, so you should be giving me what I like. And if you don't give me what I like, I'm going to go here, here, and here and tell you that you suck. And then if anybody disagrees with me, they suck. And then it's just and it's like, no. Like, yes, are there things I like and not like about most wrestling shows? Yeah, I can find something I didn't like in any show that I watch, and I can find a lot of things that I did like. Not everything is catered to me. They're not catering it to JPJ. They're catering it to millions of people. So, like, at some point, as a wrestling fan, it's okay to have opinions on each thing that's going on, but you got to like step back and realize that like it's not all just for you. It's not all just for you. And I think if we can kind of navigate that somehow, you might see a little bit of improvement, because wrestling fans definitely don't make it easy for the rest of us. You know, like I feel like the three of us, from getting to know you over these last few months, we're pretty even keel, mild-mannered people. We like watching wrestling. We hope things happen. We're critical when we want to be, but we're pretty level-headed, right? Like we don't need everything catered just to us. We're not fighting people. We're not starting arguments, but there are plenty of people that do. And it's like, you hear some of these things, like, and then you go to like a greater level of things, like some of these fans that like take it to that next level of like, you know, it's just like, you got to find a way to be able to be a fan and not cross boundaries or do anything stupid, you know?
And just briefly on that before I pass over to Karl here and we can wrap up the episode, when it comes to the opinion aspect of things, you know, 'cause you see it especially on social media interactions. I'll put this out there into the world and then see what we get here. How can I say this? If you're going to give an opinion, don't expect it to just everybody to agree with you, or don't expect people to disagree with you. If you can't handle people disagreeing with your opinion, maybe keep your opinions to yourself, because it's impossible for you to put an opinion about even just outside of professional wrestling, whether it be like a social topic or a greater issue like that. If you aren't comfortable with people disagreeing with your opinion, maybe keep that to yourself. If you can't handle that, don't put it out there, because you will be nothing but disappointed. And when it comes to professional wrestling opinion, I mean, you can have great back and forth. Karl and I know each other for the better part of over 30 years now. Do we agree on everything? Absolutely not. But we can have a good, healthy back and forth without saying, well, because we're 200 something episodes. Karl has a different opinion on something than me, so I'm going to pretend like he's dead to me now, right? That's not going to happen. You can't think that way. It's not healthy, whether it be a podcast personality or whether it be a professional wrestling fan or whether it be a professional wrestler. If you can't handle opinions, you're in the wrong business. That's all I will say. I'll throw it over to you, Karl.
Before I give my opinion here on this entire situation, let me take a drink of my non-sponsored Dr. Pepper.
Here we go.
Oh, so tasty. I'm going to keep this very simple, short, and sweet, okay? So, in the world now today, there are people that are called Karens. So, you people that are going out there and being keyboard warriors, there's a name for you as well. It's a smark. A smart mark. I have a t-shirt that I wear occasionally that says I'm with Mark and has an arrow pointing to one of the sides. When I feel the need to pull that shirt out, I definitely do. Don't be a smart mark. If you have an opinion, put it out there, sure. But when your opinion gets challenged, don't become a smart mark. Don't become an idiot about it. Don't be a Karen. Just say, that's a very different opinion. Thank you. And move on with your life.
Agree to disagree. That's it. Like, it's okay. It's okay. The world was built on people that did not see eye to eye on all issues. It shouldn't be hard. And I know, this goes well beyond wrestling too, but that's just the world it seems we're living in. And if you don't agree with me, F you. F you. You are dead to me. You don't need, and it's like, okay, I get it, but like, how do you grow? You have conversations. You talk about differences. You make compromise. You figure things out, right? That's how we grow as humans. And that's how we grow as wrestling fans too. Yeah, I might not agree with this. Okay, well, maybe you run into a conversation with someone who changes your opinion, because that can happen. Yeah. And if you're maybe not your opinion, but it can change your idea of something. And that's how we all kind of get it. Like, it's just bizarre to me, this, oh, you don't agree with me? Well, that means you're a piece of crap. I'm not talking to you. Okay, good.
Some of the worst conflicts and darkest moments in human history have just stemmed from a differing viewpoint and ideology or religious beliefs or just personal beliefs, right? agree. Like JPJ just said, agree to disagree. Again, opinion wise, you're never going to have everybody agree with you. You can put that out there into the world. Like-minded people may think the same. Other-minded people won't think the same. It is just a matter of fact. It's never going to be. Not everybody's going to be on the same plane of thought. It's not going to happen.
No.
Best way I can say it. All right, Karl. JPJ, let's round things up here. Let's get our plugs and then make our way out of here. JPJ, outside of what we're doing right now, what do you have going on these days for over at Love Wrestling for people who are maybe seeing you for the first time here?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on again.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Hell of a time again, as it was last week as well. Love Wrestling. I have a few things that I do. I try to hop on. We do our Love Wrestling Reacts after every major show. So whenever I am available, I hop on as many of those as I can. But for me specifically, I have a show called The Wool Report that I do with my buddy Matt Sell. We call him The Franchise. We do those this month. We're doing them 2 shows a week. Thursday mornings are our NXT review, and Sunday mornings are our AEW review because AEW has been pushed to Fridays or Saturdays because of the NBA. And then on Thursday nights, as you mentioned earlier today, Joe, at the top of the show, I have a show at 8:30 p.m. All right, on Twitch. It's called Between Two Beards with John Pluggo, as we call him. That show's a lot of fun too. We very much involve the people watching, the chat. We have guests on. We do lists. We do drafts. We kind of just, shoot the S about wrestling. We try to keep it, a little more not routine based. Like we kind of ebb and flow and just kind of go as the show goes. But it works for us. Yeah, man, that's been a blast. The Wool Report's been a blast. Just everything. But yeah, that's really what I do on a weekly basis when it comes to Love Wrestling. Please, if you haven't checked any of it out, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Right before we head out here, Karl, let's let everybody know about our sponsors.
Our sponsors, we have 2 amazing sponsors right now in Phoenix at fnxfit.com. If you're into supplements for working out or need just something comfortable to wear when you're working out, go to fnxfit.com. While you're there, everything that you add into your cart that is not a rotating monthly plan, everything else that you add into your cart, if you use the promo code TBTalkPod, you're going to get yourself 15% off that entire order, which is absolutely fantastic. And our other sponsor, you heard from them earlier. You heard from all the women earlier at collarandelbowbrand.com. Go and check out collarandelbowbrand.com. Anything that you put into your cart there, whether it is brand new or clearanced merchandise, you're going to get 10% off that entire order when you use promo code JKPodcast. There you go. Make your way over to fnxfit.com and collarandelbowbrand.com.
And of course, make sure we still have it ticking across the bottom there. Make sure and go check out donate.tiltify.com/@lovewrestlingca/Trevor Project. As I mentioned, if you can't financially donate, no worries. Just share the link out and get the word to support this wonderful cause. I think that the coolest part about the Trevor Project is helping people in the LGBT plus community, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with suicide prevention. That for me is the coolest part of this, and just for us being able to play a part in supporting this great cause. It's just been absolutely amazing to see the feedback and just the outpouring of support for this. We've already killed our goal to the point where we've extended our goal. Absolutely amazing to see that. When it comes to Karl and myself over at Love Wrestling, coming up this week on Wednesday for Turnbuckle Rewind, we're going to be going back to 2004 with the NWA/TNA pay-per-view, the very first ever King of the Mountain match between Ron the Truth Killings, better known now as R-Truth, versus Jeff Jarrett, versus AJ Styles, versus Raven, versus Chris Harris. That is going to be a banger match. Looking forward to talking about that one and watching that match. I haven't watched that match in years, literally years. It's going to be cool, and I hope that you guys enjoy watching it as well.
And just so that everybody knows, you can find that at lovewrestling.ca for everything that you have heard, including this program. you can find it at lovewrestling.ca. It is an amazing website to go to, very easy to navigate, beautifully scrolling across the top with the latest episodes of everything available. Make sure you go and check out lovewrestling.ca.
All right, Karl, JPJ, it's been a pleasure, boys. We'll see you guys on the next one.
It's me. It's an honor to be the V. As you can tell in the background, we are out celebrating. That is what we do here at hittingthemarks.com. And I invite everyone to continue to tune in to Turnbuckle Talk, but check out all of our other shows. We have weekly content, especially lit up by the flagship show. You can find that all at hittingthemarks.com.
Run.